I think the most sort of scared I ever was in ADAC. We got stuck in a really bad storm, and we were on like a 38-foot or 40-foot boat or something like that.
Which is
full
small,
cabin. Yeah, and it was, it was a good boat, but we had it was twin engines, and we had an engine failure. We got into like some 15, 20 footers, and they were coming over the top of the boat, or you would come off a wave and just free fall and just smash it. It was like, it was bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really scary. We shot a caribou that day. Literally, we spotted these caribou, and Corey was like, you guys have like 1 hour. Like, you can get off the boat, you can hunt for like 1 hour, and if you don't get back in the boat and we don't get across this channel, like, we're going to get stuck and it's going to get bad. And we got out of the boat, basically ran at this caribou, ended up shooting it, and basically grabbed it, dragged it all the way back to the beach, and then got back in the little dinghy. Well, all that took a little more than an hour.
Right.
But it was, we did it pretty fast.
Yeah.
Corey was watching. He was like, you guys were literally running across the tundra, pulling a caribou. So we get down onto the beach, and it was like an hour and a half. Well, that extra half an hour put us in this really bad spot.
Welcome to the Just Hunt podcast.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Just Hunt podcast. It is number 11. It's the first one we've shot in the daylight. So we're sitting down here in the dungeon studio, and I can actually see daylight. It feels like not the right place to be on a day like today. Nice spring day, sunny and a little bit warm. But we have Mr. William Altman here, fresh off a shoot in Montana.
Yep.
Flew in last night. And William, someone I've been wanting to get on. He lays pretty low these days. I think by design. So we wanted to pull him out in the light again and just have a good conversation. And I guess we'll get into some of the details, but for people that don't know, John and I were talking yesterday about this podcast, and we're like, William's the most interesting hunter in the Northeast, or the most interesting man in the world. I could play off of that because I really think you are a pretty interesting guy, and have a lot of wild experiences, and you're pretty low key about it, but some of the stuff you've done is been pretty awesome. And I don't think a lot of people know, but William's been kind of all over the world shooting footage. And doing some hunting too, mostly filming outdoor related stuff, I would say, right? Yeah. And how long have you been? When would this the short season and the Gordon Whittington stuff? When was that? That was a long time ago now, right? Got to be 10, 15 years at this point.
Yeah, I would say I was about 20 when it started to really ramp up. I was filming for myself. My dad and I were filming each other when we were in Maryland. I was 18, so that would have been 2008, 2009. And then around 2010 is when it sort of started to ramp into more commercial and serious work. Met Donnie through Sitka gear. It was really where I sort of started. Sitka was just really ramping up. It was an interesting time for the industry, really, that whole 2010 era, because that's really when social media started to ramp up. And camera technology was changing, mirrorless cameras. Well, it wasn't mirrorless then. It was 5Ds, so it was still DSLRs, but they were shooting video. So you started to get that cinematic 35 mil look and all that. And I hit that all just right. And I kind of fell. I didn't do any training, right? I didn't train for photography or anything like that. Just got out of high school, wanted to hunt all the time. The timing was right where we moved to Maryland for a couple of years. And we were managing that big farm down there. So we were doing a lot of hunting ourselves. And I was just out of high school. My dad's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't really want to go. I don't really want to go to college. I wasn't that into school. And it's like, well, you got to do something to make money. And I was like, well, I just want to hunt all the time. He's like, well, that's fine, but you got to make money somehow. And I was like, well, I can learn how to film. I can film hunts. And so I started just kind of buying some cameras, and I bought a 5D Mark II, which was sort of that first break into that new look that now everybody shoots on, right? But at the time, all my stuff looked different because everybody else.
I remember that. I remember that when that stuff came up, and now it's like everything.
Everybody has it, But so I wasn't really a professional. I just had different looking content. And I really actually didn't really know what I was doing because I had no training in photography. but I had a knack for getting out there and getting into like dirty spots and, making it happen. And so Sitka, I started sending photos to Sitka Gear, literally, and they were like, "Oh, this looks good." And because I was shooting on different technology than what they were used to seeing. And they flew me to SHOT Show in Vegas to talk about like basically working for them.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I met Jeff Simpson and Donnie Vincent.
Yeah.
Well, really, I met Jeff and Donnie and Jeff were teaming up to do like the short season.
Right.
And so I got hired to film the short season for Jeff that first year. And but I mostly spent the season with Donnie.
Right.
Because he was doing a lot of the bigger hunts at the time. Jeff was more local with the whitetail and elk and stuff, and Donnie was, doing sheep hunts and moose hunts and all that stuff. So I spent a lot of time with him.
So was the Gordon? I know you filmed Gordon. Was it hunting Sitka deer? Was that before or after?
That was technically like my first professional shoot.
Okay, right.
That would have been. That
was for North American whitetail, then.
Right. Yeah. That would have been like the year before the short season.
Okay. Yeah.
That was probably like 19 or something at that time.
So you guys had, and it's funny because I'm trying to think here, but like, you might be my oldest friend in the industry. Literally. Like I might have known, like, I don't think people probably don't know that, but like I've known William longer than most everybody.
I was talking to you before any of this even happened.
That's for sure.
Which was, this is dating us, I guess, but like this was through like chat groups, right? This wasn't even on social media.
No. It was Maryland Whitetail.
Maryland Whitetail Forum.
Yeah.
And your like tag was like New Hampshire buck hunter or something. Yeah. So I was like, oh, New Hampshire, and like I'm from Maine. And So that would have been. That would have been like 06, something like that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, probably
07, somewhere in there. Yeah,
it was just out of high school. I know because I went there maybe during high school or just after to Maryland to hunt.
Yeah.
I think we went a couple times actually.
Yeah.
And that's how I just started like, I want to learn more about like Maryland hunting. And so I went on, that was like the only resource where you could actually find, and there was actually a ton of information on there.
Yeah.
So and then, so you grew up in, you grew up in Maine?
Yep.
And what was the deal with that farm? I forget.
Basically what
did you do on, I know, but I guess what was the
deal was, it was an old friend of my dad's. He actually went to high school with the woman that owned it.
Okay.
And she it was a divorce thing. She had gotten a divorce, and it was kind of her husband's idea to own all this land down there. And they just kept kind of buying the neighboring farms, and they kind of they put together like 1,200 acres.
Yeah.
And when the divorce happened, she ended up with it in the divorce. And then she was like, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
And it needed quite a lot of management. It was very mismanaged for a while.
Yeah.
It just was messy, and nobody had been sort of doing a good job. And my dad had built a house for her and at the time her ex-husband. And
was it down there?
Up in Maine.
Okay.
It was like a summer home.
So it was a Maine connection. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so she knew like my dad's, construction background and aesthetics and all that stuff. And so that was like right around 2008 with the crash. And my dad's construction business basically crashed because no one was building homes in Maine anymore, second homes. And so she basically hired him to come down and sort of put this place back together.
Yeah.
So we spent like 4 years or something down there, just sort of fixing all the mismanagement on this property and sort of getting it on track. And through that came like the hunting rights. Nobody was really like, there was no lease or anything like that. So we were able to hunt there.
Yeah. It was a pretty good place to hunt.
It was. Yeah. Yeah. And Maryland's kind of a sleeper
for
a big deer. But
especially that area. Yeah.
But we went into that. that was like, we were green. Like we were, we were very typical like Maine, limited opportunity hunters. Right?
Yeah.
Like we didn't have a lot. We shot some bucks, but like not a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And so when we sort of fell into that, it was like, oh my God, look at all the deer. We primarily really only bow hunted there. We shot 20, 25 deer a year off that place. Mostly does, a lot of does. And then every year we'd shoot a few bucks or whatever. And, so that was sort of our catalyst into like bigger idea hunting, whitetail management, all that
wasn't
stuff.
It like the first you bought I don't know if it was the same. I think you bought like a Canon. What did you buy first? Was it a Canon camera? It wasn't
the first camera I bought was a handy cam.
Yes.
Like a Canon handy cam.
Yep.
And I quickly was like, this isn't going to work. I literally sent it back.
Yeah.
And I bought a XHA1S.
Yes, that's right.
Canon.
Yes.
Tape camera.
Yep.
So I bought that basically to film the hunts. But then a friend of mine who was a photographer, he luckily and sort of inspired me. I was going to go down the route of like the lettuce adapter and like the 35 mm lenses to put on the XH.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey man, like Canon just came out with these 5Ds and they shoot video. Yeah. They're like the first real, the very first one I think was a Nikon D90. It was the very, very first one, but it was like limited. But it gave it that 35 mm look. It just wasn't very good. Yeah. And then it went 5D Mark II, and that just like completely changed the industry. Yeah. And so I bought a 5D and a 24-70 2.8 and basically hit the ground running. Yeah. And so that gave me the ability to do photography and video. And that sort of set my image apart from everybody else's. Like I said, I really didn't know what I was doing. Like I didn't have a good background of like framing and settings and all that stuff, but it still looked different.
And it still was decent. It was pretty good. No, still it was. Because I remember you were sending me footage back in the day, and I was like, oh, this is. But looking back now, like, sure. But at the time, it was probably just as good as anything else, and it looked different. So
especially for what the industry had to offer at that time.
Yeah. And then you end up killing like a couple really good deer right off the bat too on video.
Yeah, we shot some 150s and 60s type of deer.
Did you work for your dad at all doing the construction stuff?
I didn't really. So I was when the construction sort of stopped. I was like 17. So I just started to sort of dabble in it. I did it obviously like on the side, but as an actual job, I was working with my dad a little bit. But then I was still in high school, so like I didn't have a lot of time for a real job. Yeah. I was doing schoolwork. And but I just started to dabble with that, and then we moved to Maryland, and I worked on the farm to help manage the property. I actually had like a 3-day-a-week job, but my living expenses were like nothing because I was living on the farm. They had houses, and we were living there, so I had very low expenses. So I'd get like a paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever, and I'd just buy another piece of camera equipment, whatever it was, a different lens or different body, and started upgrading my like kit through that. And it was just Dad and I filming each other on our own hunts. And we did that for like 2 years. And then, like I said, Sitka Gear started to take notice. Literally, we bought like a pair of bibs, Sitka bibs, and like a jacket, like a shirt. That's all we could like really afford. Yeah. And we would trade. Whoever was in front of the camera would wear the Sitka Gear. Yeah. And so I had like content to send them.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just curious if I know you said your dad focused mostly on like higher end homes and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was mostly all second homes, like summer. He was one of the better higher end construction in the area.
Yeah. Do you feel like that kind of like attention to detail and stuff kind of rubbed off on on your photography stuff?
Yeah, and my dad was always very detailed. I always say like if you took a wall apart, like you'd find quality inside the wall, right? Like it's deeper than just what's on the surface. And that definitely, that attention to detail like rubbed off on me to sort of, I look at a photo all the time. People send me a photo and I'm like, oh, that's great. But like that one blade of grass is in the wrong spot,
like, you said that to me for sure. But like, that'd be good if that great blade of grass wasn't right in front of the lens.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just little things, or like the background, you're like, oh, that'd be great if like you had changed the angle slightly to get like, this bit different background or whatever it is. And those are the things that set apart like a good photo and a great photo, or same with video.
Yeah. So, and that was really like, I think, obviously Midwest Whitetail had an influence on us, but really you like taught me a lot, and especially with like gear and like what to look for, and like, hey, like from the beginning, like when we started filming. So I learned most of it from you, definitely in the early stages. And so you were a great resource.
Yeah. No, I said the timing for me, like, I don't know if I was trying to break in today, like if I could do it the same way, because a lot of people are.
Yeah, it's hard to set yourself apart.
It is. And just get that sort of foothold. But yeah, so that morphed into essentially working for the short season and Jeff and Donnie, and then Donnie and Jeff didn't work out with each other, different personalities, whatever. And so Donnie he was like, I'm going to go do my own thing. And he hired me to film it. And then at the time, the short season was basically Jeff Simpson, Donnie Vincent, and then Kyle Nicolite was sort of producer, editor, and second camera. And then I was like a cam on that project. And it just so happened that like me and Kyle and Donnie worked really well together. And so the three of us like didn't work that well with Jeff. So we all three split off and started doing whatever you want to call it, Donnie Vincent Adventures or whatever. It never really had like a good name.
Right.
And then we did that for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, made like the Rivers Divide and Terra Nova with the Woodland Caribou and, some other projects like that. And then companies started asking us if we did commercial work because our films were, at the time especially, were the top end of sort of cinema,
for sure,
in the hunting industry. And, people had never really seen anything like it. And so we were like, well, we don't do commercials, but like we can try.
Yeah.
So we started doing more commercial work and, realized that we enjoy doing that as well. And that sort of took a front seat a little bit. We've got a ton of footage that has never been seen.
Yeah.
Which is just now, I think I've sent you a teaser from like Donnie's new YouTube series.
I don't think you have. So you have to.
I'll have to show you that. But we basically have like, almost 10 years worth of hunts that really haven't seen the light of day. And so the idea is to essentially start branding more of a productive like YouTube channel with Donnie.
Gotcha.
Start releasing that stuff. I mean, we're going back.
Oh,
I mean, the first one is like Toke, which is like the first hunt I ever did with Donnie.
Well, did that never
saw the light of day?
That's what I'm saying. It's so crazy just, knowing you and talking to you over these years and like knowing what Donnie's doing through you. Like, hey, I just got back from Alaska, just got back from Australia, just got back from almost dying in the,
ADAC on the ocean or whatever.
And then I'm like, and some of it's come out, but a lot of it is just like, I'm like, what? Where is it? Like, where is it?
Yeah.
And
it's just a huge bank basically. And it's going to be kind of fun to release it this way. I think, I mean, I've been talking about this stuff with, at home too, which we'll get into about like kind of disappearing off of the face of the social world and all that stuff. And it's like when you release something that's 5 years old or 10 years old, like it's still exciting for the viewer, but it's in the past now.
Yeah. And
so like you don't have to kind of battle with this like, current. Like if you release something that's 2 weeks old and then you got all these people around you, they're like, oh, well, like I saw his truck over here and I saw this and I saw that. And then they're like putting all the pieces together and they're like kind of figuring out where you were and what you were doing.
Oh, whereas if it happened, trying to make assumptions about how you did it, or just anything.
Or really, just literally the industry's changed. Yeah. Like you can maybe no longer do it the way that you did it 10 years ago. And it's like, well, then it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And for the viewer, like they're still going to be super excited to watch it. It's like, why does it all have to happen, right? Like tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I think that's the world we got into, and it's like, that's how everything went, and that was what got the most traction, particularly with like Midwest whitetail was one of the first, like, and that's what the world we really are in and have been in. Although we're starting to hold some stuff back,
a little
bit, like. Not everything, but some things like, this one needs a little more time or whatever.
Let it soak for a little while.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting when that stuff comes out because there's it's crazy how much is there. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
So tell us about the first time with Donnie when you were in Alaska.
Like Dall
sheep hunting. Yeah. Tell us that story because that's kind of wild.
To this day, that's probably the most difficult hunt we've ever been on.
Holy shit! Still,
was that first time you ever?
I should
been
say
up there.
Yeah. I mean, I literally met Donnie on the trailhead. Like, I had met him one time in passing, but like we didn't really know we met each other.
Yeah.
Like, we were just in the same room.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we were supposed to meet up. It's kind of a long story, but we were supposed to meet up in Anchorage and then like drive to Toke, which was like an 8-hour drive or whatever. And then like basically spend the night and then get up and go in. Well, I missed my flight, which really wasn't my fault at all, but I missed my flight. So he ended up like going ahead of me. Yeah. I had to basically catch up.
Yeah.
And so I got in with the car with the outfitter and like we drove separately. And so I literally showed up at like 5 a.m. at the trailhead after driving all night and like headed into Toke, Alaska on a Dall sheep hunt. Like I had no idea what I was really doing, and got in there. It was like 20 miles or something hiking there. It's like a hiking only area.
That's wild.
And took a day and a half to get to base camp. And then we hiked to the top of the mountain, scouted. It was the day before the season, spotted a big ram. And we were like, okay, great. This was an archery hunt too. So it was, pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Well, we literally spotted this ram And as we were watching him, we turned to the left, and like over the mountain was a snowstorm. This is April. Oh, this is This is August 4th or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're talking basically summer.
Yeah.
You know? So here comes this snowstorm over this mountain, and we're like, oh, whatever, snow squall. Let's get back to camp. Well, we were snowed in for 3 days.
Jeez.
And so the first 2 days of the season, we couldn't even get out of the tent. We were in a Donnie and I just met each other. We're in a 2-man tent for 3 days.
Yeah.
And just socked in, rain, snow, the whole nine. And, finally got to a point where we could get out of the tent. We had almost a foot of snow. And so we hiked up, we hunted for the first day, found him again, didn't get a shot. Second day, at the end of the day, we ended up shooting him. And we couldn't get to him till the next day. We shot him in the afternoon. Again, it was 2 days of nice weather. We shot him, and the shot was just a little back, but it was, through liver basically. Yeah. And he ran up over this mountain, and we were like, okay, well, we have tracks and blood in the snow. It's going to be fine. It's going to be all right, but we're going to have to give it a little time. He goes up over the mountain, and literally he's going right into a giant storm. And so we're just like, oh, crap. So we go up there, and we're in the storm, and we can see him bedded a couple hundred yards away, out on the end of this pinnacle. And we were just like,
I think I remember, that's the footage I remember from that.
Yeah. And it was the snow would break and we'd see him, and then it would snow again. We couldn't see him. And finally we were just like, all right, we're just going to have to wait till morning at this point and go back to camp, which is 5 miles down the mountain. Jeez. And so we get to camp, wake up in the morning, total nasty weather still, but we're like, he's dead. He's going to be dead. He's going to be dead up there. So we go up there, we get to the pinnacle where he was, and all we can see in the snow is grizzly tracks and wolverine tracks. And we're just like, what? And the moose and the sheep is gone. So we're like, what are we going to do here? So anyways, they dragged him basically off a cliff, and we got down. We ended up finding him in a heap, and he was mostly eaten.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The grizzlies and the grizzly and the two wolverines just hammered him all night. And so
was the bear still on it?
No, fortunately, which we didn't have a gun at all, because we were on an archery sheep hunt. We didn't have there was no gun needed really. I mean, it was not a lot of, wasn't a bear attack situation really, but it kind of turned into one. So literally Donnie's arrow knocked, and it's white out blizzard, and we're going down this cliff, and end up finding him and packed him out. Well, so it took us a day and a half just to get to base camp. And then we hiked from base camp to where the sheep was, up a couple thousand vertical down this ridge, got the sheep, and then ended up hiking all the way to the truck in one day. It was a 30-mile day. I mean, it was
with snow on the ground.
With snow on the ground, and we had 20 or 30 river crossings to get in there. And the problem was, and this is where we started running into an issue, is on the way out, the river was rising because of all this weather we were having. Mm-hmm. On the way in, we were knee deep crosses. It wasn't that bad. Well, on the way out, we were waist deep, and it was rising. So we were we just got to get out of here. If this thing keeps rising, we're gonna get basically stuck in here. So we hiked all the way out until 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. that night or something. And I mean, all of Donnie's toenails fell off. They all turned black, and I just
pretty rugged.
I'll never forget getting in the truck. When you work really hard, right? You're still kind of loose. But as soon as you stop.
Oh God, yeah.
And we got in the truck and drove 20, 30 minutes to town, and we actually phoned a restaurant in town, and we were like, I don't think we'll make it till you close, but can you just make us hamburgers or something and leave them out on the porch, and we'll pay you in the morning. And this is small town stuff, And they were like, we'll still be cleaning up when you get here, probably. Just come on in, we'll be closed, but no big deal. We'll make you some food. So we get to the restaurant and stop the truck, and it was okay, now we have to get in the restaurant, and it was swing the door open. And it was you have to basically pick your legs up, to get, and everything was still wet and full of sand. And I mean, it was
brutal, huh?
Yeah. I just remember that being that was the most physical trip we'd ever been on. And then we've had some other really physical hunts, and then some dangerous stuff too.
Bear stuff and the
bear stuff in the boat. Yeah. I think the most sort of scared I ever was in ADAC on the boats, which we got stuck in a really bad storm, and we're on like a 38 foot or 40 foot boat or something like that.
Which is
full
small,
cabin. Yeah. And it was, it was a good boat, but we had, it was twin engines and we had an engine failure, which gave us basically half of our maneuverability and power. And we got into like some 15, 20 footers and they were coming over the top of the boat, and I was like, if this thing rolls, like we're done. Like there's nothing.
Well, it's cold, right?
Oh yeah, it's
it was
cold
like
water.
November or something something.
Whatever. Even if you call Coast Guard, I mean, like literally to get a Coast Guard helicopter out there, it's like 8 hours.
Oh, for them to come. You're on your own.
So I mean, like even if you're like, we need you now, like it's 8 hours till they can even.
Come. They'll just try and find you.
No, it's pretty. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly point. At that point, it's like they're just searching for bodies, right? At that point, So that particular trip was. I just remember getting out of that. It was about an hour of really bad. When we were in that storm, and then we got into some sheltered water. But
how many people were on that boat?
It was me. It was Corey and the first mate there, and then Donnie, Kyle, and I, and it was trying to remember who the third. It was a second camera as well.
Okay.
So there was 6 of us or something, and it was really bad. I just remember coming out of that, like once we knew we got out of those waves and like we were okay, we're gonna live now. Yeah. It was just like I remember like texting my family at home, being like, I'm coming home, like.
What's the conversation like with everybody else on the boat when you're going through? Is it just kind of quiet? And
yeah, it's pretty quiet. Everybody's just like, hands on deck, whatever we got to do. But it was, I mean, you were holding on inside the cabin. You would be holding onto a rail. And I mean, at that point, we had stashed all cameras as best as we could, like in cracks of seats and everything, because we couldn't hold on to anything. And it was like you hold on to a rail and a wave would hit us so hard that you would fly to the other side of the cabin and hit the wall. Like that was how aggressive it was. And the scariest moments was when you would come off of a wave. It was a very unorganized. We were basically in like a surge, like a current surge. Yeah. And so everything was a different direction. Yeah. And we would come off of a wave, and basically another wave would come from the side and hit the bow, and then the boat would list like so hard that I was like, oh, this is it. Like we're rolling on this one, And you would come off a wave and just free fall and just smash it. It was like, it was bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really scary.
How long did that last for before you got into some?
It was about an hour of really bad for like about an hour. And not, having one engine was part of the issue, because you couldn't, Corey couldn't, punch the throttle to like maneuver the boat well into a wave. Yeah. And all it was when we figured it out after, all it was a faulty water sensor, So the engine thought it was sucking water in, and it wasn't. And so literally at the end of it all, like I was like, just unplug that water sensor, and he unplugged it and the engine ran fine. It was like, oh fuck, but in the, what are you gonna do in the moment?
No, nothing.
Can't get back there and work on it, Jesus Christ. So it was really sketchy.
How far ashore were you when that happened?
Not anything crazy far. We were basically in between two islands, and the current was coming over, and out there you've got like 20,000 feet of water that'll literally come up to 100 feet. So you get all that water trying to push over a 100-foot bench and then drop off on the other side again, and you get that current mixed with the wrong wind, and all of a sudden it just lifts up like that, and it'll be 15, 20 footers. And we got stuck in something like that in between two islands. We were just trying to get back home that night, and it was the day we shot caribou. We shot a caribou that day. Literally, we spotted these caribou, and Corey was like, you guys have like 1 hour. Like, you can get off the boat, you can hunt for like 1 hour, and if you don't get back in the boat and we don't get across this channel, like we're going to get stuck and it's going to get bad. And we got out of the boat, basically ran at this caribou, ended up shooting it, and basically grabbed it, dragged it all the way back to the beach, and then got back in the little dinghy. Well, all that took a little more than an hour. Right. But it was, we did it pretty fast. Yeah. Corey was watching. He was like, you guys were literally running across the tundra, pulling a caribou. So we get down onto the beach, and it was like an hour and a half. Well, that extra half an hour put us in this really bad spot. Yeah.
Looking back, would it have been better just to stay there?
Probably. Yeah.
Or was it going to be something that was like
you could
days and days?
No, you could have stayed in that cove overnight. but I guess Corey.
You don't know.
Corey just thought like we'll make it, and we did make it. But it was some of the worst stuff that he'd ever been into. Like,
really,
it was just bad. Yeah. That particular area, he's like, I'll never go back there in the winter. It was in the winter, right? It was November. It was January. It might have been January. It was probably December, I think.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
And he was like, I'll never go back there in December. Like, ever.
Yeah.
He's like, that's the last time I'm ever going there.
Jesus.
But we got one.
Yeah. So what other cool, are highlights of like that period for you? Like other hunts that really stand out?
Yeah, we did. Everything from, right, we did all the big animals, all the sheep, moose, caribou, whitetails all through the Midwest, mule deer in Canada, like all that stuff. And then we did like Newfoundland, like woodlands in Newfoundland. That was really fun. We've also done like red stag in Patagonia. We've done Australia, like water buffalo in Australia. We've never done any of the Africa stuff. Donnie was never really that interested in the African stuff. He'd probably go like me for like Cape Buffalo or something, but he just never really was like wanted to go shoot all that. And I don't know. Love all that stuff, the moose stuff and the caribou and I don't know. I wouldn't say I have like other specific hunts that were extra memory, but they were all fun.
Didn't you film something in Australia that was like super unique?
The water buffalo.
Yeah. So what was the story with that?
With the dingoes.
Yeah.
We filmed a pack of dingoes, like essentially hunting water buffalo, which had really never been documented before.
So did they not know that they did it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was thought that water buffalo have no natural predators.
Okay, gotcha.
Which I'm not even sure if dingoes are, like, water buffalo aren't native to Australia. I'm not totally sure if dingoes are or not. But the point is, there was nothing that hunted a water buffalo.
Yeah.
Well, apparently dingoes try anyways. They didn't take one down. Yeah. But they, as a pack,
they made an effort.
They hunt. They basically tried to get a calf.
Yeah, you go on the sick or something. It wouldn't take much.
Dingoes are about like coyotes. They're even maybe a bit smaller.
Oh, really?
Times. Yeah, they're not a real big predator, but they pack hunted water buffalo, and we filmed that, which was pretty. Just very rare situation. Basically seeing water. We just walking, saw the water buffalo. Dingoes came out of the woods, and like they basically went at each other, and then turned and basically ran right at us, and essentially chased each other right through our group. And then the dingoes actually saw us, and then they basically stopped hunting the water buffalo and thought, well, maybe I can eat that instead.
Oh, really?
They basically all turned and started to come at us, and they all kind of circled us, and they were like, yeah, no, this isn't what we want either. And then they just left,
No shit.
We also had that pack of wolves surround us.
Oh, yeah.
In British Columbia. That was in Alaska, actually, not BC. That was on a moose hunt in Alaska.
Is that the footage where there's just like a white wolf out of like...
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it's alders or what. Yeah. Just like right there. Like all of a sudden the faces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Basically what happened there was we saw a moose, and we dropped off the hill to hunt it, and we got down into the alders, and we were heading out right around, I think it was a bedded moose, and we got towards where the bed was. Well, he wasn't there anymore. He just, either the coyote or either the wolves bumped him out or we bumped him out. I don't know, or he just got up and left. But we got into that area, and we saw, at first we thought a paddle. It was like, oh, there's something white. Well, white. And we were like, oh no, that's a wolf. And I was in front. I was like, well, I'll sneak up just a little bit. So Donnie, and we had another guy, Chris, filming. They sort of held back a little. I snuck ahead just a little bit. And all of a sudden I see the wolf kind of move to the left. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. He's in there somewhere. And I'm filming, and I had a pretty good view in front of me. And I'm like looking for the wolf, and then I'm like, oh, he's over here. And I'm like, okay, how did he get from like over there to over here? And then I'm like, oh, there's 2 wolves. Okay. And then I get on that wolf, and then all of a sudden it's like 3 wolves and 4 wolves, and they just start kind of coming out of the alders. And they really started to circle me, which the circle started to end up, basically hitting where Donnie and Chris was too. And he was pretty inexperienced, Chris, and he's just like freaking out. Like, what are we gonna do? And we didn't have a gun either at that time. We did a lot of stuff without guns, where we probably should have had more. But so Donnie, had his bow, whatever. Yeah. But I'm basically filming, 3 or 4 wolves. Like, I think there was probably 6 or 8 in the group, but 3 or 4 were like inside this room. with
Jesus.
me. And, you know, within 10 yards. And they were basically just checking me out. And they were all talking to each other, which was pretty cool to hear. You know, just like the little yips and the little communication. And they kind of basically circled us. And then they just were like, nope, like we don't want to attack whatever this is. And then they just kind of faded off into the brush. So that was pretty neat. And I've had other wolf encounters too. And I was one time in Alaska, we were on a caribou hunt, and you know, we had our tent and we were on a river, and I just went over to the like little side tributary to like take a piss. Yeah. And I'm standing there peeing, and I literally look up, and like on the other side of the little stream, there's just a black wolf just like looking at me. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, hi. You know, and you know, with their like, they like gold eyes, you know, those black ones. Yeah. So that was like, you know, kind of eerie looking, you know, it's just like, ooh. Hi. There was quite a few black wolves in that valley. We ended up seeing a few more from the hills. But so yeah, you know, some pretty, it's, after you do a lot of it, you know, I mean, I realize they're pretty incredible experiences, but like you sort of get almost used to it. The more you are out there, the more those things happen. But when I tell people, they're just like, what? You know, Emily always tells me like, you do realize like what you've done isn't normal, right?
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's why it really is. Like, I understand, like, it's all perspective, right? So if you ever experienced anything like that or heard anything about it, it sounds wild, but that was your life for X amount of years. That's
so I did that like normal for about 10 or 12 years, like really heavy. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've sort of slowed down on some of the bigger hunting trips. And you know, focused more on being home. Now I have a baby. And so just tried to create this sort of, you know, a little bit more time at home. There were some falls where I would be gone, you know, I remember one fall I was in Alaska, like in the state of Alaska for 2 months straight. You know, we did 4 trips back to back in Alaska, and it's like I just couldn't sustain that and try to have a family at the same time and everything. So I sort of, you know, told Donnie, I'm like, I just need to sit back on some of these hunts and not go on every single one. If you know, have a big one or two that like you want me on, like we can do it, but I can't do every hunt. And so I've sort of slowed down on the hunting side. I still do all of Sick Manta's commercial work for the most part. That's where I just was in Montana. And which is mostly 4, 5, 6 day trips. And
how often do you think you're traveling for that a year? Is it like every couple of months, or?
I mean, it fluctuates. I would love to do a commercial almost every month. If I could do like one commercial every month, that'd be great, because you know the pay is good and stuff, and it's like basically 1 week a month that I can do that, and that would be ideal. But we don't always get, you know, that many commercial work and projects, and that's why I do the other things at home. Jack of all trades a little bit. Right. But you know, I mean, as you know, trying to create situations where you can work hard and make good money quickly so that you have time to do things like hunt for yourself. So
well, for many years, I mean, particularly with like some of your whitetail stuff at home, you would like, I remember specifically, like you'd just spend so much time scouting and learning, and would like find all this stuff and like set all this up, and then like you just didn't hunt because you weren't there. Like, so you never like actually hunted. Like you had all this like information and these spots and these plans, and then it was just like
most of gone. Like the summer I would work less because, you know, it's not hunting season. So we'd do some stuff in the spring. There'd be spring hunts, you know, maybe spring bears or turkeys or things like that. And then you'd have the summer, and then you'd have heavy fall work. And so I would, you know, in the spring and summer, like be in the woods a lot, and I'd be finding spots, you know, or running cameras or whatever. And then fall would come around, and it's like I barely get a chance to hunt anymore. And so that was another push to sort of back off on some of that and be like, I want to do some of my own things, you know, I want to go on some of my own hunts. And ever since I started doing that, I haven't hunted in November for a little while. Because I keep shooting my
that's
deer.
what I'm saying. I guess that's what I'm alluding to is since that, your success has been pretty good. Pretty good. And you know, the other thing I was thinking about too, and it just kind of is a group from Seabucks. I know, like, not that we weren't all successful before that hunting, but I feel like we all made such a big push and like prioritize that season.
Yeah, you did.
And the other thing is that, and I know you were gone a bit that season too, but I know you hunted hard when you were home at the end.
I had a good window there. I had a good November window where I was home for a couple weeks straight.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hunted hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like before that, I remember thinking, I hope we kill something this year for this series. You know, like
we knocked out of the park.
Yeah, well, that was
for what we had.
But we had no idea like if that was possible or like. And I think if you look at the success since then from everybody that was involved, it's like, you know, it's dramatically better. And I think it just took that like 1 year of like, okay, we got to get it done this year. We got to prioritize and put all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, we could do this.
Yeah.
You know, we can be successful. And it's not always filming either. Like just, you know, putting yourselves in position to kill mature deer in New England. You know?
That particular season, I mean, what was the combined age of like Bigfoot, Brown Tine, and Strawman?
Yeah,
those three deer alone were.
And then Curly Ross's buck was not young either.
Right.
I mean, it was awesome. I don't know, fucking old enough.
I mean, yeah. I think Brown Tine was 8 and Bigfoot was 12 and Strawman was what, 9
8,
or something?
Yeah, I think 8. Yeah. I think the buck Ross killed Curly was 6.
Right. So I mean, that's
and then we killed a couple other bucks too, like Rye and Josh and Jake killed deer too. And
but some of those like, older upper class deer to pull all those off. I mean, when we shot Bigfoot and Brow Tine in 1 year, it was 6 and 5 years of hunting those two deer. It was like 11. Right. It was like 11 years of combined, effort at those two deer. Just like in one season, it was just like, whoa, what did we just do?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was wild that we pulled that off that year.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I legitimately was like, I remember when we were pitching that series, I was like,
we'll be lucky.
Hopefully we can kill 1, maybe 2 bucks this year. If we just got to tell the story about it and show what we did. And I think we did a good job of it overall.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like,
it was a fun series. People still to this day, are like, oh, the sea bucks was the best. That was the best, It
was cool, man. It was really cool. It's just like not a sustainable thing to do every year, I guess is the best way to put it. At least with the current, industry and everything going on. It's a lot easier to do a hunt or a video at a time and then but to string together, I think we did 12 episodes. It was a lot but
John had a rough time.
He said he had sores like 6 months from sitting in the editing seat for months and months.
14 16-hour days
it was a lot. Like I said, it's just not an easy thing to do, but it was cool. I'm glad we did it, and like I said, I just think the level of success after that has been pretty damn good. Because I feel like that, once again, we'd like, all right, let's see if we can do this. And not just filming, like obviously filming, it's one thing, but like everybody was successful in the same year. And then like, I feel like most,
you set the bar really high. And then
within reason, like it's been, like I said, if you look at the success before and then after, it's been like, and then it's kind of like maintained or been right around that. It's like, holy crap, we can do that. I remember like thinking, and I still think every time like I kill like a mature deer in New England, like I'm always like amazed or like, oh my God, it happened. But it was there's definitely a lot more doubt that it would happen before that, I feel like. And it's, it's, if you put your time in and you work hard and, hunt smart, you're going to get an opportunity, but
we're getting better
for sure
at obviously at hunting, but just about like having confidence and success. And, before it was just kind of this, luck, like you were just lucky to like encounter a big deer.
Exactly.
And now it's like, no,
it's
not
systematic.
It's not just luck. Like you have, there's a lot of things you can put in your, I mean, there's luck involved, but if you put all your puzzle pieces together, like it gets, your odds start going up substantially.
And I guess I think that was about the time frame. So it was, was it 19? Yeah, 19. So it's been 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
But that was about the time where I just feel like everybody was like, at least you guys in Maine and Ross and I are really starting to figure out like how, okay, we can do this. We've found something that really is going to work every year if we do it right,
Yeah.
And so
pretty much has,
for the
since
most part.
then. We put the pieces together.
So are you, for hunting Maine, are you guys doing film still? And I know that you're less involved with it than you were previously, but are you guys you're still doing some stuff, right?
Yeah. Dad's been working on a big project with the state of Maine.
Yep.
For the moose biology.
Yep.
I think that like the goal with hunting ME is not to like film every hunt we do and just like, kind of create like a hunt series.
Yeah.
It's more focusing on like, stories that matter.
Yeah.
And it's like this biology project is a good example of the state of Maine, with the moose biology and like kind of trying to help the public understand like what the state's really doing with the moose and the biology. And like, there's a lot of misconceptions and like misunderstandings on like what the biologists actually do and what the work, tells, like the reason that they're doing all this work. You can't just have a free for all like moose hunt and just like expect the moose population to sustain, it doesn't
of course
work like
not.
that.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of dispelling all those myths and also talking about like ticks and this tick problem and some of these things that aren't well explained, at least or not well, the state tries to explain it, but like this is a more in-depth attempt at
and
explaining
probably
it to
in
people.
a different way, a different presentation of the same information that's maybe more like
it's more
consumable to
exactly.
to everybody.
And it's difficult, as we all know, with local or with politics these days. It's really hard. People don't want to trust the government.
No.
So when the government tells you, when the government tells you like this is what we're doing and why we're doing it, like people just automatically don't want to trust it. But if Hunting ME uses their the platform to sort of dive into this, like people will listen. They might listen to what we have to say, but they might not listen to what the government has to say, right? And so I think that's an attempt that the state's trying to use us as like a gateway into like people's people understand what they're doing.
Right. So in general though, you're not really filming hunts then.
Not much.
And you haven't been for a couple of years.
No, we haven't filmed a whitetail hunt in 2 or 3
years.
But
even yourself with Donnie necessarily.
No, I haven't filmed I really
in general, when is the last time you actually went out to film? Like not like,
I think
this which was kind of cool still, but
I think the last real hunt I filmed with Donnie was probably it was a spring. We did a spring bear hunt where grizzly, or actually it was technically brown bears because of the region. But it was basically grizzlies because they were mountain bears, not coastal bears. And that was probably, it wasn't last spring. It was probably the spring before. So we're talking
in a couple of years.
Talking like 2 years, pretty much. Yeah. And the sort of straw that started to sort of change that was I got a moose tag 2 years ago, and Donnie happened to have a moose tag as well, and it was like I can't go on this hunt because I was like I got to go on my moose hunt, and so he basically, it was the first time he kind of had to like hire a separate crew, and then he just started doing more of that, and I was just like I was like okay with it. I'm like I just need to back off a little bit. Like I had been doing it a long time, and I just needed like a little space from it. And I think that'll come back around where I think I'll probably start doing some of his bigger trips again. Like more focused, like one or two a year where it's like a big, like big effort. But I just like, I needed to just sort of take a minute and focus on things at home, right? Like, found partner and found now we have a baby and like, we're doing all that, so I needed a little space to like figure all that part of my life out. I mean, I'm 35, so
it's time.
You had to get it done,
So the window is not open forever for that type of thing,
right?
Well, that's great.
Over those last couple of years, what has your personal hunting looked like?
So I've gotten to hunt a lot more. The one good thing about my job was when I was home, I got to really focus on hunting, right? Because I was making, I was doing these trips and making money. And then it was like the week that I'm home, it was like I didn't have to work at all. Because but at the same time, I was completely removed from anything that was happening at home. Like this was like mostly pre-cell cams and things like that. So like I didn't have any information, right? Like it wasn't like I was like jumping in to something that I had, if I was gone for the first, last week of October and the first 2 weeks of November, it's like, okay, well, like you're still in a good time of the year, but like I didn't have anything like leading up to that where I was like, oh, this is what the deer are doing, this is where the deer are, or a specific deer, or if he's even still alive. Like I was like, I don't know, And so it was difficult to just like jump into a spot for a week and then expect the results and then leave again,
because that's what I just remember watching you, because I was at the time hunting
And
I had more time than you did.
And
like,
you were finding
for
more
my
success.
own stuff. Yeah. And I remember you were just like in and out and like, and then you're just gone. And I'm like, fuck, it's so hard to like be successful that way.
Yeah. As soon as I thought I started to learn something, I had to leave again. So since I've been hunting more, and having success, like, and I've kind of stopped talking about it, honestly. And I don't really like post much anymore on social, and which is like a whole nother, which we can dive into a little bit about like the industry in general, and like the direction that the industry is going, and like if it's good or bad and all that stuff. But personally, like I've just stopped talking about it. And I had a lot. Maine's tricky because it's a mostly open access state. So anybody can mostly hunt anywhere for the most part, which, is like New Hampshire too, but less urban. Right. There's less private ground. There's a lot of open, like not public, but like paper company land and all that stuff. And so as soon as you find success and you start talking about it, you have all of a sudden 6 people, following you, trying to figure out what you're doing. And it's like, I don't know. Like,
you don't want that.
I don't really want the attention. I don't really need the attention. And for the most part, it was, when we were filming hunts, like it was definitely fun for people, to interact with people that watched the hunts and enjoyed them. Like that was obviously a nice element, but then for every 10 people that you inspired or whatever, you'd have 10 people that were hating you.
I have a problem. Or
maybe not 10, but like even just one.
Yeah, but they seem to stick out the most, unfortunately. Right. That's kind of the nature of it.
It was like, is it worth it? I don't know.
Yeah.
And as well as it's just like a much more deeper, philosophy with it all. But it's like, if I, let's just say I started shooting, big deer every year in Maine and posted videos and photos of it every year, it's going to inspire people to essentially come try to do what I'm doing. Yeah. And then you start to create competition. Oh yeah. And with competition breeds whatever, leases, more expensive land, and then it gets harder and harder for you to do what you love. Mm-hmm. Yep. I was just with Donnie the other day, and he told me that like Dall sheep hunts now are $60,000. I mean, when I started filming with him, it was like 18, for a guided sheep hunt. Yeah. And I mean, we're talking, that's like 18 is,
it's a lot of money for
it's a lot of money, but like but a normal person could
do it once in a lifetime.
Right. Yeah. They could say, all right, I'm going to save a couple $1,000 a year, and like in 5 years or whatever, I'm going to go on a sheep hunt. It's like my dream hunt. Yeah. 60, you're out.
Yeah. I mean, that's like 99% of people are out.
That's a Dall.
That's a Dall. Right?
So stone sheep, 150. Yeah. For stones. When I started filming, stones were like 30, and that was like, oh my God, 30 is insane. They're $150,000 now. And
what
so
about
it's like
desert bighorn.
Yeah, I mean,
it gotta be right
more.
Up there,
but I mean, it's like it's now impossible basically for the average Joe to go on a sheep hunt. Yeah, and and look at like land values in the Midwest, right?
Been crazy.
Like $10,000 an acre now. Yeah, for
some stuff. Yeah, for sure.
And and it's like, I was just with a friend that's a real estate agent out there, and it's like, it's just crazy. I mean, he's like, dude, if you shoot a 200-inch deer on your property, like your land value skyrockets. Yeah. Just because you shot
like $3,000 an acre.
Just because you shot a 200 there. The deer's dead and gone. But like, you can now sell that land for more money. And there's literally people buying properties, and then they hunt them, and with the attempt to shoot like a 200 and then flip the property because the value skyrockets. And it's just like, but I mean, it's like, wild. Oh my God, like how do you compete? How do you play that game if you're not just loaded? Yeah. Right. And so like the fear of, that industry, starting to bleed into New England, which it's already starting to a little bit. Yeah. But like, do I want to be a part of that? Yeah. Do I want to do I want to be the catalyst that brings that?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
So, it's been like a struggle for me. And I think it's mostly for me because I've seen the industry in a broader spectrum than most people have.
Oh, right? 100%.
Working inside of it for the last 15 years and watching the evolution of the industry. Yep. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want to participate in that anymore. Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, can I
stop it? Probably not. Yeah. But can I slow it down, or can I speed it up?
Or at least feel good about.
If I started
at the end of the day.
Let's just say I started shooting 150, 60-inch deer in Maine every year. like people are going to be like, I didn't know you could even do that.
Right.
And next thing you know, you got people from out of state coming in and buying up land. Like, oh, I'm going to do what he's doing. And now, I don't have a place to hunt, or it's getting more difficult, or now you have a lot more competition, or it just becomes a lot more expensive.
Just changes.
Yeah. It just changes. And, like some people are going to say like, well, learn to adapt, or learn to, or follow suit, do what you got to do. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess, but not everybody can afford that. You just can't. So, I mean, like, when are we going to start seeing leases?
Yeah. I mean, there's some for sure.
I mean, there's some already, but I mean, when is it going to become more mainstream in New England?
Yeah. I don't know. I think the biggest barrier right now, or the biggest reason we don't really have them, is because
available access, probably.
There's so much available access, and like we don't actually have that many hunters. Like in New England, we have a fair amount, but like
it's just relative to the amount of land that's actually there.
Yeah, the hunters to land is pretty low. Like people may bitch and complain, but like if you're hunting in like southern Maine or like southern New Hampshire or like eastern Mass, okay, there's a lot of people out there. But like if you're getting outside on a landscape level, I think that I always say we have moderate pressure. That's a pretty good, like across like New England, I'd say we have moderate pressure. Obviously there's pockets that are pretty high and people are going to say this and that. Yeah, I get that. And I'm not like disagreeing. No, I'm not discounting or disagreeing with you. I'm just saying in general, we have moderate pressure and really good access. If we had more people and less access, I think that would become something pretty quick. And the other thing I always say is like,
I mean, obviously the population is growing.
Yeah.
And more development
for sure.
is happening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's probably inevitable, but is it 10 years from now? Is it 30 years from now? Is it 50 years from now?
Then you got to think too, I always say like a lot of the public access, whether it's state, federal, conservation commission, or just like paper, whatever, like we'll call it public access, essentially public land, right? Anybody can go on it. A lot of that is just as good as a lot of the private too.
For sure.
So like there isn't, and I think that's a big thing you see in other parts of the country where there is a huge discrepancy between private access and public access. It's not even in the same ballpark.
Of course.
It's so disproportionate, the experiences you could have in each. Here, I feel like it's just even, so there's not a lot of incentive for people to want to, if I, buy this piece or lease this piece, I'm going to have this great experience that I couldn't have otherwise. Well, I can tell you from guidance from owning like, some significant pieces of private land, it's like, it's a little better sometimes, but like
sometimes it's not.
I mean, all the deer on my wall from around here, one of them are off a piece of land that I've owned, and like every other one is from land anybody else
the same
could
thing.
go on for the most part.
Same with me. Like mostly all of the hunting I do is mostly on either conservation type land, or it's on like paper company land, which technically like paper company is still private land. Like if they wanted to, they could say like no more, and they could. I don't think they're going to very easily. They're not going to make that call very easily, but it's in their hands. Like really, the state of Maine has actually very little public land. Right. If you discount paper company, all the Northwoods is all privately owned. All that stuff. So the card is there for them to make it.
They could.
And probably same with New Hampshire. I don't know like technical details, but I mean, I would think that a lot of what people consider to be public land is really private land.
Yeah, a lot of it is. Yeah. And because it hunts, and it's essentially practically for a hunter, it is public land. It isn't like obviously when you look at the deed, it's not public, but it's anybody can go on it. There's really no one telling you anything, and you can just kind of go.
Yeah. So, anyways, been lately. Anyways, that's been like something that's been on my mind, and I know we've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, it's on mine too. I don't know. I think to your point, could you slow it down? Maybe. Can you feel good about what you're doing at the end of the day? That's probably, in my opinion, the biggest impact you have is have peace of mind of like the approach I took. I feel good about regardless of like the outcome. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like everything is going that way slowly. Although we are, and you could agree or disagree, but I feel like we're a little bit behind the times in here in New England from the rest of the country. And probably that's a good thing in this instance.
But like I wonder, like in the Midwest, right? You've got land values that are skyrocketing, and everybody wants to. And when I say everybody, at least people, wealthy people.
Yeah.
Really, there's not much middle ground anymore out there. But let's just say like hunting TV and social media never happened.
Yeah.
Where would the Midwest be today?
Yeah, no, it would be pretty normal out there. I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
You know
I mean,
what I mean?
it's the industry has blown it up big time.
Right. So
there's no doubt.
Yeah. So, and in New England in the past 5 years, 10 years ago, like YouTube, right? Like Maine hunting. Like, what did you find? I mean, basically nothing.
No.
I mean, you might find some handy cam little thing here or there,
Yeah.
but there was nobody
No.
professionally trying to put together anything. And then just in the past 5 years.
Oh, it's exploded.
Right. So
really after Sea-Bucks, I feel like that was kind of one of the first
that
ones.
Was pretty much the first like professionally produced like series in New England, pretty much.
Yeah.
But what's that going to do? You know, I mean, in the Midwest, it was the same way, right? Like the Drury started making DVDs.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure like half the land they were on, it was all just like, permission.
Yeah.
They just knocked on doors and they were hunting on stuff.
Yep.
And now all the property out there is $10,000 an acre.
Yeah. Well, anytime. So the industry, well, it's been monetized. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like the wildlife, the experience. I don't think without, I think there's like, I know I mean, obviously I do stuff on video, but I can tell you that if I never saw a video camera again, I would still be out hunting big bucks. Like I know I would, I don't like, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I think filming's fun, but like I'm not like, I wouldn't be upset if like
it disappeared tomorrow.
Yeah, Matt didn't follow me around this fall.
Like,
I would be like okay with it, like it's not about necessarily that
right
for me. So I think it seems like people though, I don't know if that's everyone can say that, I guess is what I'll say.
Oh,
I don't know if that's everyone can say that.
There's definitely people in the industry that are doing it for money or for ego or something like that.
Which drives that train,
right.
Down the road.
If all that stuff disappeared tomorrow, there's for sure, hunting TV personalities that would essentially stop hunting because they really don't enjoy it all that much. They're doing it for money, ego, whatever they want to call it.
Some of the companies that exist selling products that people probably really don't need, and I think they would probably go away too if they didn't have the media to support them. And there's some good companies out there that make good products. I'm not saying that it's all like that. It's just some of the stuff I see now. I'm like,
really?
Whoa, what are we doing?
Do we really need that?
It's like, like what?
With the video stuff, I think a lot of it is so evident in people's reactions. The reasons that they truly are hunting or would hunt or wouldn't hunt if video wasn't around.
Some of the stuff too that's become so commonplace for people to say on video and like things, it's like, I'm trying to think of one. I hear people say, but it just speaks to like how far down this rabbit hole now.
Right.
Like to your point, some of the reactions you get are some of like the stuff that people say on video, and I'm like, man, I don't think I would have said that, even if I feel like I don't think that's a good thing to say, but it's like I feel like it's just we're walking a line now where like that stuff is just normal. Like I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example. I can't really think of anything at the top of my head. Without like throwing anybody under the bus or like whatever. But it's just
the industry.
It's like it's just
shape. It's like the industry is shaped, like a certain model.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah, it is. And I think that,
And
and the more that they can be shaped, the more, they can sell to a specific
audience
shape and, the demographic and, hey, you need this, you do it like this. And
Yeah, that makes sense. I just know that I personally judge people or judge companies, whatever, very heavily on, I feel like I'm, at least in my own opinion, a pretty good judge of whether or not people are genuine about certain things, and it shows through. I think so. If that's what's coming across is that it isn't genuine, then I don't want to watch it.
Right.
I think there's a lot of stuff out there that isn't genuine these days.
And for sure.
Yeah. So as far as like I understand that part. Is that the driving factor why you've kind of backed off social media? So it's kind of together though, the filming and the social media, right? Yeah. But because I don't have Instagram on my phone anymore. I don't have Facebook on my phone. I do check it like at the office, but like I found myself, it was like I don't know when it was. It was like 1 or 2 summers ago, and it was like August. And I remember like neurotically checking it was like every like 60 seconds.
Right.
And I remember I was here and I was like, I am fried right now. Like I can't even, like my brain is just smoked from just like looking at this dude. It was just like too much. I was like, this is too much.
Right.
And I got rid of it. And like I would download it sometimes for hunting season because people are like sending messages. I'm trying to respond, but like I don't have it. Maybe I'll put it back on this fall, but like I feel so much better not. And it's not like, I don't know what the feeling is because it's not like I'm not like a jealous person or anything like that where I see stuff and I feel pressure or like I don't know what it was, but it was like something with my brain was like not like it was my thought process. It was like an anxious feeling all the time.
Right.
Like I have to, and then I'm like, oh, no, I don't. I don't need any of that.
Well, that's what it's designed to do. Basically,
is
hook you and then essentially sell product eventually through that.
100%. Yeah.
You know, and the more clicks the more times you click it, the more likely you are to buy something or do whatever. But I don't, social media is like, I guess the reason that I've stopped filming my hunts personally and essentially posting anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't posted anything in 2 years or more. Is I just didn't see I didn't see that it was benefiting me really anything. I mean, you've seen all the pictures of my deer.
Yeah.
So you're a friend of mine. I'm just going to send them to you.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to call you and be like, this is what happened. And like, this is the story. I don't need, 1,000 people to see it that I don't interact with on a day-to-day basis.
I just don't. I totally, I get it.
And then all that does is, for the most part, is it breeds, enemies. It might bring a few friends. But I guess, and I've said this to people to do too, but like, if I send you a picture of a big deer I shot, and you might send that to a few people that you think are worthy of seeing that. Yeah. And so the people that are probably worthy of seeing my story are going to end up seeing it because it's just going to flow through the grapevine or whatever. But I don't need to like put it on social media where just, blanket people are going to just see it.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it, and it might only, I don't know. I've got plenty of enemies, which I know you do too, where it's like people hate me for no real reason other than the fact that I shoot big deer every year. Yeah. And it's like, I just don't need to breed that. Like, I don't need the attention. Yeah. And it was like, what am I gaining by, making these videos? Like, yes, I'm inspiring some people, and was the best part about it. Yeah. Is like people felt good watching it. Some people, a lot of people. But I also was inspiring, enemies and other things. And I don't know. I just didn't need the attention anymore. It was like, what am I gaining? Right? Like, I'm not making any money on it. Yeah. Like,
I mean, very little people are.
Right. I mean, unless you go all in and, like, pump it, you're just not going to make any money. Yeah. And even if you're pumping it, what do you make?
Yeah. Not much. I mean, you can stay afloat and, make a living, but no one's only very, very few are making like getting rich off it. Right.
Right. But if I can do, you can spend all that time doing something else that makes you enough money so that you can maybe try to just like not work in November,
For sure. Yeah.
And not worry about all that stuff. So that, I guess that's the direction that I started to take is I was just like, I'm really not, maybe I'll get a free bow or maybe I'll get like, some free product.
Yeah. I mean, but
it's like, I'd almost rather just buy the bow that I want to buy and then shoot it for the next 10 years. Yeah. Like, I don't need a new bow every year. It's actually just a pain in the butt. Like, legitimately.
True story. That's what people don't like. Everybody's like, I'm like, it's not cool. It's a pain in the ass. Especially when you set up a bow right. Like, I'm like, I don't want a new bow. I'm like, maybe I'd have my backup, which the backup's in pieces behind us. That's, B's back there. But like, it's all I really need. Not that we wouldn't, shoot a different bow or whatnot, but I think that's right.
You have to shoot the flagship bow when you have essentially a sponsor. Like, I understand that, but I just was like, I don't need it. I don't know.
No, and I think
I can't eat bows. You know what I mean? Like, I've shot in a PSE that I've had for whatever 6 years or 7 years or something, and it's like every deer I shoot is 15 yards away, and it's like it does its job.
For sure. I think there's another element of, at least for me at the beginning, it was like, let's see if I can do it. Let's, can it, for me, at least in New England, when I started, it was like, can
it be done?
Can it be done?
Right,
that was a big thing for me because it hadn't really been.
And I was on the same page. We did it together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was a big one. Can it? And now it's like, yeah, we can. We did it. And so, I'm like,
yeah, it was like almost like uncharted territory. Like everybody wants to explore something that's never been done.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with some of these, the deer too. Like, can we consistently do this, get it done? And it's like, yeah, we can. I don't think I'll ever stop that. But, I think that stuff starts to lose a little bit of its allure when you realize like, oh, okay, yeah, we can do it. We can figure it out. And then like, even just like, like the stuff like you get a free bow or you get this or get that or get the notoriety. And it's like at the beginning, it's kind of cool. And then you realize like it really makes no difference in my life. Like it really doesn't. Like at the end of the day, like who's going to matter to you? Your friends that you interact with on a daily basis on a personal level, your family. Right. Yeah. That's really what matters. So like, that's why I still post a little bit, and talk to people. Like that's the main reason why I'm on there is just to communicate with people that watch our content. But and I enjoy that, don't get me wrong, but I don't.
Yeah, it's a tough balance.
And I just don't know if it's healthy, like necessarily to be on it all the time. Like I said, I just remember that time where I was just like, what am I doing right now? I'm like, my kids are trying to talk to me. Yeah. And I'm like
scrolling through like
mindless stuff. I don't even know what they said. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what am I doing right now? This is no good. And so I backed it off, and I've just been backing it off more and more. And now there's not like, I check text messages. But the other thing I did, which helped out, is I got this watch, and if I have an actual text message or a phone call, I can see it on my watch. Mm-hmm. So I have to sit there with my phone, like, of course I have it with me right now in front of me, but I can see, and I'm like, I don't need to go to that. So it's like when you answer the text message or you get the phone call here on your phone, then you start checking other stuff. And next thing you know, you wasted all this time, right? So I'm like trying to like separate myself from it when I can. But that's a big thing for me. It's just I feel like health, like just my mind feels clearer, and I just feel more at ease not being on that every day. Mm-hmm. But of course,
that's the world we live in, unfortunately, right now.
I think a lot of people could probably benefit from that, myself included.
Oh yeah. But we can talk more about actual deer hunting and stuff. It's more fun. Social media and the industry is probably more of a sore subject than a positive one.
Yeah, I would say.
But
So deer hunting, So it's a lot there. So you've hunted. Where have you hunted deer? You've hunted deer in what? Maryland, Illinois, the Dakotas.
Oh yeah.
Have you hunted
Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota. Obviously Maine, New Hampshire. Massachusetts, I guess, Maryland. That whole southeastern area. I don't know. I mean, most of the big ones, right, for whitetail. Most of the focus stuff. I haven't done like any whitetail, I don't think, in Canada. I've done mule deer in Canada, but I really don't think I've done any real whitetail there. But
so, and you're focused on Maine pretty heavily now. Do you obviously you live there and you're into it, but you haven't really traveled for whitetails lately?
No.
So why is that? What's the? I mean, I think I know, but
I think it's just the allure of something that's really hard to do. And it's also it's freedom, right? You have tons of freedom in Maine, or really most of New England. You have a lot of freedom, right? To go sort of create your own success for a relatively low cost. Obviously, if you want to go to the Midwest and lease, 1,000 acres, you can have some good freedom to hunt 1,000 acres. It's going to cost you a lot of money. You know what I mean? So, I'm hunting tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of acres for essentially free. And that is, I guess it's like the allure of like what's over the next ridge and what's in the next swamp and what's in the next valley. And then, I guess just doing something that not many people are very successful at. Like shooting, upper age class whitetails on a regular basis for the most part. Is pretty hard to do, especially in Maine.
And a lot of them have been lately with a bow.
The last 2 years. I mean, the last 2 years I haven't sat in a tree for myself in November.
Yeah.
Because I've shot my 2 deer before November.
Right.
So, which I miss November, but I just
maybe you just hold on to one of those tags.
I think I'm going to start.
You got up to ante, right? It's been 5-year-olds? Because have they all been 5? The last, how many years has it been? 2 or 3?
Well, I haven't posted anything in 2 years.
Right.
The last 2 years I've shot 5 bucks.
Right.
1 in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And then 4 in Maine.
Yeah.
3 of those have been with bow.
Yeah.
And 1 with a muzzleloader.
Yep.
1 with a rifle.
Right.
I mean, the age class on those, I think the New Hampshire one wasn't the oldest, but the 4 in Maine were all 5+.
Yeah.
Yeah. One was, I mean, I don't think and nothing was super old. Like I haven't shot anything like 8+ right now, but it's mostly like 5 and 6 year olds.
Wasn't the one that white 8 they shot right in the tree? Wasn't he pretty old?
You're right. I lied.
Yeah, he was old.
He was
right?
8.5.
Yeah. Super old.
Yeah. So he was 8. Yeah. So he was 8.5.
Yeah.
I think at least. And then Pretty Boy was like 6.5.
Yeah.
And then I think like 2. Well, I think the 8 I shot last year was 6+, and then that 10 I think was 5.5.
Yeah.
So 5, 6, 8.
Right.
So whatever, mid, upper age class, and whatever, 130s, 140-ish type deer, 130s mostly.
So do you think your success lately? What are the biggest factors? I mean, I think we touched on some of them here, but what would you like to summarize?
I mean,
what would
time
you say?
obviously is a big one.
Time's huge.
Time is
people got to
massive.
realize that. That's the other thing. Like, this is not to go back to social media, but like when people see success on social media, they just see the success, and they think that. I think, and this is what I worry about. Honestly, people see the success. It's like, well, what am I doing wrong? It's like, you're not doing anything wrong. You work 5 days a week to feed your, wife and 2 kids.
Right. Yeah.
And you hunt for 2 days in the weekend. That's it.
Right.
These guys that are posting, they're hunting like 6 days a week, or they have the whole month off. Like, that's what people don't realize is like, that's the type of time
which is obviously
it takes to have that level of success.
Right. Which obviously working to feed your family is a noble cause. You have to do it. But you can also structure your life in such a way that affords you more time. Yeah. And working a 9 to 5 is tricky to do that. But if you work for yourself or you have multiple other jobs and you can structure them so that you have more time off in the fall, then it affords you more time. And that's what I've done, right? I've tried to do things where, I work a week here and a week there, and I work really hard and the pay's pretty good. Yeah. And then I try not to work as much in the fall. But that was an intentional structure, right? Sure.
I just don't think some people even realize how much of that's like, in my opinion, that's a number one contribution to your success.
Absolutely. Is
your time.
Yeah.
Like time. And now, I don't think people realize that like that's, you can be good and you can do this and you can do that. But if you don't have the time,
I would back that up a little bit and say that it's time when it's time.
Sure.
You need to have, you need to have the freedom to pick your time when it's time. Yeah. Because you don't actually need tons of time. You need to be in the right place at the right time. Yeah. And to have that freedom of being like, it's Wednesday and tomorrow's Thursday, but it's going to be the day. Yeah. I need to be in the woods tomorrow.
See, that's the freedom that I have, because I don't have the time to do a month, but I can.
You can pick your days.
When it's time to go, I can go.
Right.
That's how I've done what I've done. It hasn't been, because some guys literally will take the hunting season off. Like, right. And that's awesome too. I can't do that, but like, people have to realize that that's it's right. It's a flexibility to be able to kind of go at the drop of a hat type of deal. And then just you can't just do that once or twice. It's got to be consistently throughout the season, hunting time when it's time, 4, 5, 6, 7 times stacked up on each other.
Right. You see a window and it's a 3 or 4 day window, and you're like, I need to be in the woods those 3 or 4 days, and it might be on a Monday to a Friday. Right. And it just you don't have a week. Like, the weekend might look terrible. The predictions are terrible, so the weekend's not even worth being in the woods. Yeah. I mean, of course, you can always kill something when you're in the woods.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
And the window, when the window is there, you need to have the flexibility to be there. Yeah. And that's, I would say, the biggest thing. You don't need tons of time. You need the freedom to pick your time. And then I would say some of the things that have led to more success lately for me is like just spending a lot of time in the woods, not in the hunting season, whether that's just scouting or shed hunting and things like that. Because a lot of what I've, turned into success has come from time spent in the woods not during hunting season. And that's just a, mentality thing where you have to, go. Like you got to go. And a lot of people, they don't go in the woods because they are whatever, they're doing
busy,
other things or they're just being lazy and they don't go in the woods. And it's like, no, you got to go out there and scout and find spots and learn areas and turn that into success. And then when you learn how to predict what the days are, right, then you're like, okay, well, these 3 days I need to be right, that spot I found right there. Right. And then you turn that into, and then that turns into success. Yeah. Where it's not just a free for all. You're not just like, oh, I'm just going to go sit in a random tree on a random day. Yeah. That rarely works.
Yeah. No, it rarely does.
Yeah. But that's
I don't even know if that's ever worked for me, to be honest.
But that's how a lot of people hunt, right?
Sure.
They just have a tree in the woods somewhere, and it's Saturday, and I'm not working, so I'm going to go sit. And it's like, that rarely works, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's the difference between somebody sitting on a stump or in a random tree, stumbling on a nice deer once in 20 years versus
somebody every
year being able to do it or do it multiple times a year. So
so those are some of the things, and I would say that, I mean, as you know too, like I think about the same time, what I call it was right around the sea bucks time, 6 years ago, we started to find that like magic recipe of where to be, when to be, and how to predict when that's going to be. And when those pieces started to fall into place, like the last couple of years, I've freaked myself out a little bit, like with like predicting stuff, and and it's turned into success. Like we might not sit a tree the whole season, and then all of a sudden we're like, 2 or 3 days from now, we're like, we need to be in that tree that day. And like, we have a camera there, and it's like not even really been that good on camera, but it's like, we know that day or two window is going to maybe be good. And you go sit there and you shoot a, 8-year-old deer, and you're like, how did I predict that?
Well, I think the thing that I've noticed that you have is you are like always trying to learn and figure stuff out. Like you're always like looking at this and this and this.
There's always something to learn.
Well, I don't think a lot of people are like that. I don't think they look to the level of detail that you do.
Right. No, for sure.
And that's the one thing I've noticed. Like I love talking about it because I'm kind of the same way in a lot of the time. But like we probably have some conversations that like most people would never have. And I think it's almost, I don't know if it's you just like trying to like solve the mystery, I guess is what it is, right?
Big old deer are mysterious creatures, and it's like trying to figure out how to predict their movements, And
I think that you've been trying to solve the mystery for so many years that, something seemed to have clicked a few years ago. And now you're just like
dialing
really just, exactly. And it shows, like I said, it definitely shows.
Some of those, I mean, like that 8-year-old deer, that 8.5-year-old, like we'd hunted him for a couple of years, and it was like, I never sat that spot before, and but I knew based on the terrain and the sign and the time of the year, and I was like, everything's right to go sit that tree, and I had a camera there all season, and never had a picture of that deer, and never had a picture of him there, and I was like, but I just felt like that was the time to be there, and I went and I shot him at like 7:30 in the morning, and at like 5 yards, it was just like, how did I like get in the tree that was going to be within 5 yards of that deer, and I've done that now a couple times over the last couple of years. I don't know. And
I feel like Browtine was the one.
Yeah,
cracked the seal in a big way.
Yeah, Browtine was a big one. That deer though, I didn't really have like, I mean, I was hunting him like 1.5 miles away from where I killed him. And I went in there and I scouted that spot. And I found a lot of buck sign, but I didn't know it was his sign. Okay. But it probably was, obviously. Yeah. And so I kind of got a little lucky on him a little bit, where I didn't really have like a strategic plan to kill him where I killed him, I should say. Yeah. But I was obviously I knew he was in the area, and I saw all the sign, and I was like, okay, there's obviously something going on right here.
Yeah, just putting it together though. Like that's what I'm saying.
I would say the last few deer I've killed that I haven't even really talked about on social or anything, or no films about, I would say those deer are starting to become more strategic and specific. Yeah, right? Like certain deer at a certain spot at a certain time, and it's like it's starting to come together. Yeah. So I don't know.
Which is hard. It's freaking hard to do.
It's very hard.
I can't tell you how many times I've went into a scrape and whenever, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be tonight. Like everything is, And it isn't. And it isn't.
Yeah.
And it isn't. And it isn't. But if you do that 20 times, chances are one of those times is gonna be the night.
Mm-hmm. We're definitely talking a language that the tracking community doesn't understand.
No, I don't think so. Well, they know about the right time though.
Yeah,
that's what they know about. When there's snow on the ground, right?
That's their that's their time.
That's the time.
Yeah, which is it's funny because we have a community in New England that's unlike pretty much anywhere else in the country.
Definitely,
there's a tiny bit of it.
Definitely,
in northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we hold the tracking community here.
Yeah.
And I have people all the time, right, to come up to me and they're like, "Do you track? Do you do?" And I'm just like, "Not really." And for the most part, like locally, I don't get snow. I'm on the mostly coastal, right? I don't get a lot of snow during the season, but I can chase snow if I want. I can drive 2 hours north and go get into a snowy, snowy environment. But I don't know. I mean, I've done it. I've tracked deer, and we've had success tracking deer and stuff like that. But and I know you have too. But you've been tracking deer that you actually have history with, which is a little unique. But to go just to a random place, find a random track, and track that deer and shoot it, like for me personally, like that story or that like feeling is nothing like chasing a deer for years and years.
Oh, I agree.
And putting the puzzle pieces together to intercept him on his own terms.
Yeah.
Like I'm not just chasing him down.
Yeah.
Like I predicted where he was going to be, and I actually did it.
Yeah.
And like, especially with a bow and at close range, like that's something that there's a feeling that like I can't replace that.
No, I agree. I think, honestly, that's why a lot of times I don't track is because shooting a random buck wherever is just not a big motivator for me.
Right.
Like I'm not super like, I just don't want to kill a buck to track a buck. Like, I like to track. It's fun. I've done the Adirondacks a couple times on deer that I probably would have shot a buck I didn't know about. Right. And that's fine. But it's like you said, it's
nothing like when you
it's almost like a personal type thing with the deer, and it's like
learning. You build a relationship with them.
Learning about them, and that's why I don't mind when like the last 2 bucks I've tracked, Straw Man and the one that I killed this year, like I was after those deer.
Right, you had history with them.
And honestly, if I didn't, I wouldn't have killed them tracking because I wouldn't have known where to go pick up their track. I wouldn't have been in that area. I absolutely wouldn't have been. I would have been, maybe got lucky, but I wouldn't have been like, okay, I need to go down in the swamp where he hangs out late, or I need to go up in this drainage he's been in, for the last 3 years. Like, so.
And you picked up their track and you
got on. And it's like, it's wild that it's their track too. Because it's like, there's such a high percentage chance that it might not be their track. And like, a lot of times you get to study their feet, right? So you don't know exactly, does that buck have a big hoof or a medium hoof? And then you get some of these bucks that are 5, 6, 7, and they have like an average hoof. Well, there could be a 3-year-old that has
big
essentially the same size here. Like, what do you, there's some other stuff you can look at, but a lot of times when you're looking for like a track, old deer, it gets tough to actually like select the animal you're after. And I think a lot of trackers are just going after one that looks big and, and that's, you can't really do much more than that. You can do a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's kind of what's standing at the end of the track is what you get. And you may or may not have a relationship, with that deer. And I think, for some people, they don't care they don't care about their relationship, or they don't have the time, or maybe they don't even realize the potential for
what that could be like.
Yeah, what that could be like.
Yeah, without doing it, you don't know. Yeah.
That is really with whitetails. What drives me is like that relationship with that animal, learning about that specific animal. And then over time, cumulatively, you learn about all the animals because you study all these little individuals and you start to be able to, recognize patterns and that are, the same within all deer, but then you can identify the individual differences because they all are different and behave differently. And that's the cool thing to see, the deviation from, because you get a feel for what's average and normal and what most mature bucks do, but then you learn things about this buck. He doesn't do the same thing that in this aspect, he's different. And that's really cool, I think.
Yeah. Or even like you have 2 mature deer in the same area that do completely different things.
100%.
Yeah. And like they're literally like in the same general area.
On the same scrape.
He never shows up here, but he's here all the time. And it's like you learn all those nuances and everything. I don't know. That stuff to me is like what's really exciting.
Agree.
And
I agree.
And having that history, and I don't know, like showing up somewhere random and just tracking a random track and shooting a 3-year-old, 4-year-old deer. Like, that doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's something, but it's something. But to me, it's a less rich and, gratifying experience than the other. But I will say, some of the time, when you are tracking a deer, some of the stuff you can learn, aside from like killing the deer and because a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in is rooted in like learning about the animal. Like I always say, like, I don't mind shooting animals. It's not like my favorite part of the hunt is like actually killing an animal.
Yeah.
Like I like to shoot stuff sometimes. I'm not saying, but it's like, that's not, I'm like, oh, I just can't wait to kill this thing now. Maybe with turkeys a little bit, but But no, I think when you're on track, you can learn some really cool stuff about a buck. So that's when you can, but a lot of time you don't even know what buck it is, and then that kind of is, maybe you can pick up that same buck's track again that season, or maybe next season. But sometimes, like, how do you even know it's it's kind of a stretch sometimes.
Yeah.
But if you can learn about the deer, know him, and then follow his track, to me that's really cool. Like, okay, like I know what he did. Like, actually, that buck right there, that big 8.
Yeah.
So I had tracked him. I shot him with a bow during November. I had tracked him like 10 days before. And I learned like this little pinch he was going to between like a stream and a beaver pond. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I followed him through there, and it was like everything just clicked.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
This is what he's doing.
And I was like, and I followed him to his bedroom, and it was like destroyed with like rubs on alders, and like it clicked, and I killed him with a bow like 10 days later. And if I had tracked him, I wouldn't have killed him.
Sure.
So like, I think
I would say that like tracking, to me, it's an arrow in the quiver.
Oh yeah.
It's not the only way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like in a situation like that, it's useful.
Or just even find, like I said, even if you in another thing, killing a deer is one thing, but if you were to go in a new area on fresh snow that you wanted to learn, and you pick up a good buck track and follow them, like, you can learn stuff in like a day or two that could have taken you 5 years, to learn otherwise. So it's I said, I think if you're showing up at a spot and killing a whatever buck, that's awesome. But like, you kind of put it in like a bubble, and like there could be so much more to that game. You know what I mean? Like on all ends, before, after, and there's just a lot more there.
Right.
And I think they're really cool animals. And if you have the chance to study them and learn about them, it's neat. It's an experience. And usually, I mean, sometimes there's just popular deer, but usually like no one else has that on that particular animal knows what you know. So it's not like you're studying something, like you're reading a textbook that something's been figured out and by a million people already. Like, you have a unique relationship and know something about that deer that no one else does. And I think that's cool.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it can be, oh boy.
Tracking.
I just got a funny text message. I'll tell you after. It's about Steve.
Yeah. If it's got Steve involved, it's probably funny.
It's probably something funny about it. So what's the goal now for whitetail? I mean,
for me,
so you killed a moose, and your dad killed a good moose.
Yep.
And then did Josh kill a moose?
Yep.
Josh killed a moose. So you all have killed moose.
Yep.
So you've kind of scratched that itch a little bit, I feel like.
The goal for me now in Maine is to find a really big deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Holy Grail.
Yeah. And I've shot now in the last 4 or 5 years, quite a few 130 inch type, 130 to 140s.
Yeah.
And, all great deer. Some of them are, up to 8+ years old.
Right.
The age class is all there, but like, I want to find something that is seriously special.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to like scout for that.
Yeah.
And I'm basically, I've been shooting the best deer in the available.
Yeah.
In the areas that I'm hunting, they're the best deer that are available to me.
Yeah.
And so I've realized, like, okay, I need to branch out further.
Yeah.
And I need to go find something that I don't have locally, or that I don't have near my house, or on the lands that I'm allowed to hunt, or whatever. And maybe something like that will show up at some point on the lands I'm hunting.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to wait for it anymore.
Yeah, well,
you gotta go where they are.
Yeah. Right. And I would say in general, there's areas that are going to produce that mature buck that's 6 or 7 year old. That's like a 130, right? Like that's on average. And then you have some areas, and they're tough to find sometimes. It takes a lot of work, as you know, leg work. Where hey, this one's, the average maybe 6, 7 year old buck maybe is like a 140 ish, and then the top end is pushing up in there.
You get these pockets of genetics. It's either, it's a combination of genetics, food, and
low pressure
age class,
which is usually low pressure.
And all of a sudden, you might find a little pocket where there's 150s and 60s instead of 130s.
Exactly. I mean, I see it all the time for sure. Like, there's no doubt. Like, some of the areas that we hunt are some pretty good genetic pockets.
Right.
And then I hunt some that like
you just don't.
Just see. Like I know it's like every year. It's like. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it, but
it's just literally what's available in that area. If you're going to hunt that particular area, the best thing you're going to find, unless you get some freak outlier that's on
which does happen,
it's on some tangent, but you can't rely. You can't rely on that. That's a once in a lifetime type of situation. Right. So that's been my goal. Is in last year I shot my second buck tag in Maine in October like 25th or something, and so I basically had the whole month of November and December. Where I didn't have a tag. Yeah. And the year before, I ended up coming over here hunting a little bit. But last year, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to spend November and December basically just scouting. And I pulled most of my cameras out of everything that I was focused on, and dumped it into different areas, and started to find some bigger bucks.
Yeah.
So that's that's my goal this year, is to basically dive in on some of that new ground and hopefully find something that's above average.
Yeah,
which
it's tough, man.
It's kind of tough. A personal average, right?
Of course.
What I've been shooting is technically, probably above average for most hunters 100%. In that area. But for me, the average mean mature deer, is whatever in the 130s. And I want to find something in the 50s, 60s or beyond.
Right. And well, it's just same like we talked about with filming. Like, it's like, can we do it? Can we find it?
Right.
Like it's you've done that now.
I found
that.
Yeah. You've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. You found a few.
I found a couple. So, but I don't know anything about the area.
Yeah.
Right? It's all virgin ground.
Back to square one. But now you're in the right area, right?
Yeah.
That's just a big step.
Yeah.
And I think it gets tough though, because you get so tied to an area because you've learned so much about it that it's tough to break away and leave that success for a shot at something else that's not really certain. You don't know. Like
when you know your areas really well, it's like what works and what doesn't work
exactly,
and when to be where and all that stuff, and you can basically obviously every deer is different, but you have certain things that repeat. And you're like, well,
I think, one of the biggest things, even just regionally, like we're not that far apart, but like your late October is so much better than ours.
Mm-hmm. Don't know why.
I don't either. I wish it was better here.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. For you, it's that mid-November period.
Yep. Yeah.
You get a little week there. How long does that last, or does it?
For us, and it all depends on like weather windows, obviously, but there's almost always a really good pop late November or late October.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like, the last few days or even like October 20s, like in the early 20s or late 20s, somewhere in there, there's usually a really good pop where you have a lot of movement, mostly on scrapes, and transition areas and like working scrape lines and all that stuff.
All right, we had a brief intermission because out of my frustration for lack of late October whitetail success, I karate chopped the recorder. We had a scare where we thought we lost all the audio, but we didn't, and we're back.
Here we are.
So anyway,
we're still here.
Late October, has been a challenge for me. Like I said, I haven't had much success really at scrape hunting, I feel like. Not that I haven't had success scrape hunting.
That's what's worked for us.
Yeah, I have, but it's just late October. I don't know. It seems like everything gets rolling. It's a little bit later where we're at. Like, I think that first week in November can be pretty good on scrapes, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the pocket of, a few pockets of woods that I'm in mostly that time of year.
I killed a
My scrape hunting has been advancing even earlier and earlier. I'm starting to learn. Like, I'm starting to have success on scrapes in September.
Yeah,
and even early October. but I know that last week of October has just been really good to us. In the past few years.
No, the early season scrapes are. I mean,
I'm trying to figure out.
Killed a few on them for sure.
Funny how people think that like scrapes have something to do with the rut. But,
yeah, well, I mean, they definitely have something to do.
Well, I know, but I mean, like
they think,
they think that like when they see scrapes, it's like rut activity, and it's like no,
not always. It's more social, and then obviously it turns into rut activity.
Yeah, and there's different scrapes for different windows of the season. I mean, a lot of times when you see September scrapes, it's more of a food source, socializing
for
thing.
Sure.
And then obviously November is more of a rut thing, and you get scrapes that show up. They turn on and they turn off. I mean, I have scrapes that are hammered in September, and by November 1st, they're done. They're shut off. Nobody's even anywhere near them.
That's how. I killed a little buck October 17th this year. There's a scrape line. It shows up every year, and then as soon as, like you said, like November 1st hits,
done.
The cameras go dead. And they just go somewhere else.
Yeah, and then there's other scrapes that are dead all season until November, and then they heat up, and just a different travel pattern.
Yeah, that buck I killed, he was there like 4 times in 5 days. He was just like running back and forth.
Right.
But yeah, and there was a few other ones, a couple of them that came through once or twice, and that was it.
I think, like you said, though, that's super important. Those September scrapes usually focused on food sources.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's almost always in oak groves that I'm like picking up on them.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
And if you can find the food source first and then find that scrape within the food source, then you're in the chips.
Right, that's the hot spot.
You know what I mean? That seems to be, I think, the best early season spots are often on those scrapes, like right in that September food source. Like that's that velvet buck I killed right there. Actually, that's South Dakota buck, not really northeast, but he was on a scrape coming back from food to bed.
Yep.
It works pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, but I think paying attention to that stuff is such a big deal, and I don't think a lot of people dive deep into it.
No.
And learning like the details year to year, and how you can use last year's information. And really, like, I think some people like see it, but they don't do anything with it. They're like, oh, cool. This buck was here twice that, first week in November. And then they're like,
well, I expect,
so what, like,
when I find a big deer, I fully expect, 90% of the time, it's going to be a multi-year venture.
Right.
That first year is, just discovery for the most part. And then it's like, okay, I know he's alive. I know he's in this general area. The second year you start diving in deeper, and then you learn a little more, and a lot of times you don't even kill him the second year, but the information you learned that year, you then play into the third year, and then it's like 3 and 4 years in, then you're in the chips. Which is like such a long-term vision that like most people aren't keying in on.
I think it's a lot easier if you have multiple, like you're on year 5 with one deer, and then you're on year 4 with another deer, and 3, you have them stacked up. And I think a lot of those, at least for me, is like finding a deer at 3 or 4 that's going to be really good. Kind of watching him and start learning him then, so that when he's 5, 6, and then 7, then now you've got
everything
all
you
this
need to know.
information on him. Exactly. You can go in and hunt him. Like,
it's
really
hard to find it. It's hard to find a 6, 7, 8-year-old deer and then actually have enough time to put the chips together and actually kill him.
He's already old.
Because he's already old. But if you can get one that's 3 or 4, and then you've got a couple years of data on him before he hits his peak.
So would it be safe to say that since you said that you killed a buck at a place that you had never even had a picture of him, that you don't get too consumed with chasing cameras and things like that?
Cameras are a funny thing, obviously they're kind of a hot topic, especially like in the cell cam world and all that stuff. I would say that like I'm very much not focused on where I have had pictures of a certain deer currently. Like I know a lot of people are chasing cameras, right? They get a picture of a deer and they're like, oh, I need to sit there. It's like, well, the deer was already there and now he's somewhere else. And very rarely, right, does a mature deer do the same thing even once a week. It's pretty rare unless it's like a super perfect food source situation or something like that. But it's the cameras tell me, that deer's alive, the deer's, in the area, what the general size of the deer is, age class, things like that. And then it's mostly learning things from past data is really where the cameras are the most important. It's years ago. And then it's figuring out how to translate that into like what's about to happen in the future. You got to always think what's happening next, not what happened yesterday. If that deer came through yesterday, it's like, well, you already missed it. And So I don't know. I think the cameras are they're not as like, black and white as people think they are, right? It's not like, oh, I got a picture, and then you go into cell cams where it's like, oh, I got a picture of that deer today right here. It's like, well, he might be 5 miles away now already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he might not come back through there for another week. But
I think unless you're hunting like a bait pile or you're hunting like suburbia, I think it's hard to like actually capitalize on cell cam data like like to use them in a way,
the short
like at least
term,
in this area, like it's like I always say like if I'm hunting a deer in a particular spot and he hasn't shown up for 5 days, I'm like, oh, perfect.
That's
perfect because
that's almost
due,
where,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's almost where the cell cams are for me. Same, with the most useful information is where they haven't been.
Yeah,
and I know that they will be.
Yeah,
and it's like he hasn't been here for 5 or 6 days, and I know in the past he's always been through here, and I'm like, okay, the odds are starting to stack up that he's going to show in the next few days. Which, sometimes pans out, but oftentimes doesn't as well.
It's like everything else.
And you've got so many other elements at play, right? You got your wind and your entrance and your exit and other deer. I mean, he might be coming on a string and you got a doe and he should bust you. And then, you know what I mean? So it's like there's so many other elements that saying like, oh, because you have a cell cam and you get instant information, like you can capitalize on that. It's like, oh, well, I mean, but you could also go in and check a camera and be like, oh, wow, like he was here the last 5 days in a row and you could go shoot him tomorrow. So like that, and that's a non-cell situation. Like, I don't know, like that though. I don't know. I don't think that
there's endless variables.
Yeah. And obviously there's different situations where you might have a very urban environment where like, the deer's living in a little 1 acre pocket and like, he went back in there this morning. So he's going to come out of there at night. Like that's different than what we're dealing with.
Yeah. I think it's a lot different.
And to be honest, like cell cams are a huge time saver for just like general logistics for me. I mean, how many thousands and thousands of acres am I covering with cameras wherever? And it's like, if I wanted to go check all my cameras,
wouldn't happen.
I literally couldn't do it in one day.
No.
Even if I wanted to. If I
couldn't even do it in a week. I mean,
it would take me days and days to go check all cameras that I have out everywhere.
Yeah.
So, that's.
I think it's also the cell cam thing. Also, people love them, hate them, whatever. A lot of it is like you said, it's where you're at. Like in a lot of the areas we hunt, like for you, sometimes it's like, well, I got to get in a boat. Like, what am I going to do with that picture? Like, I got to get in a boat to go after him.
I might not even be able to get in a boat because it's blowing 40 miles an hour.
So,
or I got to drive an hour or two north, and then I got to hike an hour, hour into the woods. It's like
most of the time you're not going to use it in a way that's kind of walking the line or. I think the biggest concern is like ethical considerations with cell cameras, and I think that in some instances, in some places, that comes into play. But a lot of the places that we hunt, at least, are around here. It's like, what am I gonna do? Chase a buck's tail up over a mountain? Like I'm not. No, it makes no sense.
Right.
Like you said, better off just sitting or waiting 3 or 4 days and sitting there again and waiting for him to come back
honestly,
through.
If you've got a picture of a big deer today, it's like I was saying, it's done. He's already come through, and it's like most likely that deer's not coming back through there for another week or two. And it's it's kind of old info at that point.
Yeah.
But figuring out how to translate, and I would say cell cams helped a little bit. I mean, I've only been using them the last 2 or 3 years now, but like it's obviously a little easier to see weather patterns.
I think
and then see the cameras light up during those weather patterns.
Yeah.
And it's not so much like it's not specific. It's not a one camera or one photo that does anything. It's just the whole. It's the whole spectrum that teaches you like, okay, I see this weather pattern coming, and all of a sudden I see my cameras like interacting with that weather pattern, and then you're like, oh, like now I understand why.
After I don't, there's all these studies that say like weather plays no effect on deer movement. I'm just like, how are they coming up with that? Because when you're sitting there and you have like, we got a lot of cameras, a lot of cells, and it'll be like, especially like October or something that's warm, like no deer for like days. Yeah. And all of a sudden a cold front is like bing, 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 bing. It's like, okay, come on. How is that not weather related?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that helps to illustrate like what, and you can even see just times a year too. Like, bucks like hitting it, like just running into a scrape with their tongue hanging out. Like,
right.
like, oh, that deer is out on the move. He's going hard right now, versus like a September buck that's feeding and just casually working a scrape. You can start to see stuff, and you're seeing it in real time, and you're relating it to the weather and the time of year, or like, the time of day,
whatever elements that are involved.
It helps.
Yeah. And I was, I guess back to my original point is like, I was learning those things with regular cameras too.
Right.
Putting the pieces together, but it's not as like, it's not as obvious, right?
Exactly.
Now with the cells, you can see it a little bit more obvious. And, so, I don't know, I think that's really cool to learn that, like, whether you agree with cell cams or don't or whatever, but like to be able to pick up on those patterns. And, and I've helped friends, like learn this stuff too. I mean, I had a good buddy this year, and he had never really shot a big deer with his bow, and, I shot a couple bucks, but nothing big, and, I was, like last year I started telling him, I'm like, okay, you need to find, like, these are the things you need to find. And then you need to like watch the weather, and when the weather's right and you need to be there. And he was like, okay, like I'm going to do it. So he found the spot and everything. And I was looking at the weather, and I'm like, dude, the next like 2 days, like this is a window. You need to, it was late October. And I was like, this is a window. You need to be on that scrape that you found, and blah, blah, blah. And he went in the first morning and shot a big buck.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean? And he was like, it worked. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's like, it's basically like an equation.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it works.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I would say that if I had 30 days to be in the woods, and they were going to be totally random, or I could pick 10.
Oh, 100% you'd pick 10.
100% of the time.
100%.
Right. If I could pick my 10 or even my 5.
Yeah.
If I could pick 5 days over just 30 random days, like.
Oh, I'd probably pick 5 too.
Right.
Yeah. No, I would. I mean, I have to. Like I said, I have the ability to go when I need to go, but I can't go for
30 days in a row.
Yeah. So I've.
But 30 days in a row doesn't matter. Like it.
No.
I mean, you can always shoot a deer. Anytime,
I think it's more like having. It's more like, well, 30 days can matter when you're just in the woods pounding and then you just brute force.
You're just
into
blind.
A buck.
You're just blindly
brute
hunting.
Force into a buck.
Right.
Or 30 days matters when you don't have the ability to change your schedule ahead of time. Right. Mm-hmm. If you have that 30 days gives you ability to go on those 5 days, I guess is what I'm saying, because you don't have, because a lot of people can't change their schedule, It's really nice when all those cold fronts hit on the weekends, though. People are happy.
I typically,
all the deer die.
Like last year in Maine, I know like most of like the Saturdays were just not good.
Yeah.
Like the weather was not good on Saturdays, and I'm like watching the patterns, and I'm just like, oh, people that are, weekend warriors.
Well, like I was trying to get back up to hunt that one buck, and I remember looking at it too. And I just was like, and it was like, I wanted to hunt him, but I wasn't going to like cash in my chips to go after him after that season. So I was kind of like waiting for, and it was like never really came. Like I was looking like, I think it was like the last half of September and October for like a good, and I needed the right wind in there too. And I wasn't getting it either. And I was like, just no conditions that really make a ton of sense right now.
Well, I mean, the coastal island thing is tricky because you got weather to play.
So much stuff.
And so it's like, even if the window's there, but it's blowing 25, you can't even get out if you want to.
Yeah.
And
then who knows what the wind's going to be doing when you get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got a taste of it this year.
Yeah. And it changes too.
Yeah.
That's the thing I noticed.
Yeah.
It's like changing as the sun's coming up and the water's
warming, temperature of the water and all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Thermals are a big thing out there for sure. Like they pull weird ways, and sometimes I can't. I've literally tried. I'm like, this year I learned one of the spots I hunt a lot. I learned a little bit about thermals that I was basically hunting everything backwards, and I was always because when you're doing an island, right, you come in at sea level, so everything for the most part is higher than where you start. Well, I always, you'd have a hill, and I always try to like hike up the hill and then hunt so that you don't have to cross what you're, and then you're expecting, okay, I'm going to hunt it with a wind coming down the hill. Yeah. Well, what happens is the wind blows off the hill and then back drafts, and it almost always it's almost always the opposite of whatever wind you think it is. So really what you want to do, and what I figured out kind of this year, is like you want to go up the hill past what you want to hunt a tree on the uphill side, and have your wind blowing off the water at the hill, because it's more consistently going up the hill. Yeah, you might have late thermals that screw you, but if the wind is coming off the hill, it's always backdrafting, and it almost is always wrong. And
so
like it literally, it's like you almost always like it's supposed to be blown out of the west, and it's blown out of the east when you get in your tree.
Are you getting much of that if you're on the top?
Tops can be a little more regular, I guess, at times.
But probably that's not where you want to be anyway. So I mean, it could be,
depends. But I mean, the idea, it's like a really clean idea, right? To walk up the hill, get in a tree, have the action above you. Yeah. But like the wind is almost always wrong. Yeah. So I just started saying, screw it, and walking right past, whatever it is, scrapes, trails, whatever, pinch, walking right through it. And it's like, well, I'd rather the deer hit my track, be able to shoot them instead of my wind be wrong. Right. So that was something that I started picking up. Stuff's
tricky, and everyone's different.
It is.
It's funky with this and that. And
yeah, it's a unique hunt, and it's every island is different. Whether it's all that.
It's a million different.
Yeah, there's so many variables on why every island's different. Whether it's the accesses or the ownerships and all that, and then you've got just
the animals themselves,
food sources, genetics. Yeah. The inbreeding that goes on and all these things. And then you've got like, access, whether it's, close to shore or far out of, like if you got one that's way out, it's like you get a 10 20 mile an hour day, like
you're not going.
It's like not good.
Yeah, or you're not getting back.
One or the other.
Not going, you're not getting back.
So there's so many variables in that, and it's really hard, especially if you're the kind of person that like it can only like take a week off. It's like you might take a week off and that whole week is blown out. So it's like you almost can't rely on it. It's like it's an opportunity thing where you're just like, okay, well today works, I got to go. Yeah. So that's tricky.
Yeah, and then of course the later in the season it gets, the tougher it gets with the weather because it becomes more severe, and colder, and just like
November,
less stuff you want to screw around with.
Yeah, well, and
you don't want to screw around with it anyway, but no. Especially
trust me, I know all about almost dying in the ocean.
Right. Yeah.
In December.
Yeah, it's a really cool.
Yeah, you got a taste of it this year. Yeah, to do a little bit of it.
No, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I just, like I said, I like learning about the animals and the deer, and
it's
those are some fascinating deer. Just everything
it's different.
It's just different. It's just a different type of environment, different genetic, different. I'd say behavior a little bit.
The inbreeding aspect is something I haven't really thought about. What type of effect does that have?
It's real.
Sometimes you get some really weird deer, and like the smaller the islands are, like the more inbreeding starts to happen. Right. And like, but every once in a while you get a nice like a smaller island that has like a good genetic pocket, or there's deer that are swimming in from other areas, and like you get good genetics or something. But
we've seen like deer that look like goat deer,
little weird antlers,
weird, strange I could show you one picture of a buck that, I mean, I swear he's a 5+ year old buck, and he's got like devil horns, curly, look like not whitetail antlers, like something else going on.
Like a pronghorn or something.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like, you're strange.
Yeah. But that stuff, like, it's pretty rare. Kids are coming home. It's pretty rare to find a big deer on the islands. It really is. And the biggest limiting factor a lot of times is food. Yeah. And that's the one that you just can't have big deer without food. It's you can't. No. And if you get a lot of deer on an island, they eat all the food, and then the decline happens, and then a lot of times they crash, a bunch will die off, and they ebb and flow, they go up and down, and one generation, you might have good deer, and then they crash, and then you got nothing, and then they grow back up again. And it's interesting. It's an interesting, you have to be very flexible on islands,
I think we're going to have to wrap this one up.
We got kids coming down the stairs.
We're getting taken over here.
Yeah. All right.
The islands are, I think it's just a whole, we take some of this stuff on the mainland, we'll call it, or normal, I guess it's normal whitetail world for granted, but like you see in a dramatic fashion the effects of all these things in these little micro like herds. Yeah. And it's really cool to see like what does a significant predator presence do? What does no predator do? What does abundance of food?
What is an isolated population, like an island, where they're literally isolated from the rest of the population, and you might have it's just like within a 20-mile radius, you might have multiple different things going on.
100%. Yeah. The one thing that I realized pretty quickly was, like you said, big deer are rare on those islands. They're rare. It's most of them are not big. I would say as a rule. Can they get big? Absolutely. And there's some places and some islands and during some periods that they're good, really good, but they don't. And the thing is, it's nothing is a constant out there. Like you said, it's ebbs and flows and it's cyclical. Where you got to hit it in the right place in that cycle to produce that deer. But then it's when that. And it maybe only be 3 or 4 years or something like that, and then that passes, and then it's going the other way. Yeah. So it's fascinating, and that's what I like, is that just learning about those deer.
Well, yeah, and it's really it's an extension of the adventure, right? Like every island is a different one, and you go check it out, and you don't know what you're going to find.
Yeah, you got no idea.
We had some real failures on a few we went and looked at, and
they looked like they were going to be super promising, but
and then there's just
didn't have the secret sauce, or whatever. So
so kind of a unique hunt, but not something that you want to do looking for big racks.
No,
you know what I mean?
You really don't. Like,
I mean, you can go look for one, but
you're
gonna look hard.
You better have a lot of freaking boat fuel and a lot of time. Because it's just not easy. But well, I guess we gotta
wrap her up.
The kids are freaking out and running around, and it's getting loud here. So I'm glad we got the first part of the podcast and it's not gone. So that's a big win. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for stopping by.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, for sure. We'll dive in a little deeper into maybe some interesting topics, and that was kind of scratching the surface there.
Yeah, I know.
We talk a lot.
I know. Yeah, I know one thing that I had thought about, and we both have had quite a bit of experience with land management. In this area, which is kind of not a lot of that happens in the Northeast. And I was thinking about that, and it would be fun to talk about that sometime, and sort of our experiences with it.
Well, there it is. There's the second one. It's land management in the Northeast.
Yeah.
And the differences, because I think there's some big differences. So,
All right.
What do you got, Matt? Anything to close it?
Nothing.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you do, like and subscribe. If you're on, well, it depends where you're watching it, of course. But anyway, once again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Hopefully it sounds good.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I think we're good. I think we're good on the audio.
Yeah.
We'll see you on the next one.